When I go up north to visit my hometown of Bolton, one complaint stands out because of its prolific repetition among family and friends. The town center is depressing, they say, because so much of its high street shops are now derelict. This undeniable fact is made all the more stark because of its violent contrast to sweeping Layman's Crescent, a favorite of TV production firms, which sits behind our glorious Victorian Town Hall, completed in 1873. Its pillars, lions, and the elephant which sits atop the town's coat of arms speak to a confident past at the heart of the British Empire's Industrial Revolution that shames the crumbling shop fronts spreading like a disease. This regression is replicated in many towns and cities across the UK, and the shift to online marketplaces with its many conveniences disguises a collapse in our social fabric as we voluntarily deprive ourselves of friendly, face-to-face interactions with strangers. If you're one of the people who whinges about the decline of our high streets, I've got news. The high street could soon be reincarnated as something that serves modern Britain's needs. This being modern Britain, governed by labor, that transformation is most likely to take the form of migrants being housed in former shops. I'd ask if this sounds like a joke, but you've probably had the ability to be surprised kicked out of you by now. And I can confirm that the Home Office is now facing protests over a plan to house migrants in a converted clothes shop in Waterlooville, Hampshire. If this proves a success in Labour's twisted thinking, you can be sure that they'll deduce that the most sensible course of action is to repeat the experiment elsewhere. Rarely does a political decision sum up so perfectly the attitude of those who govern. Rather than taking action to rejuvenate a high street mourned by people already here, the government is preparing to sacrifice a site to a modern orthodoxy that states Brits should allow migrants who arrive here illegally access to the UK and house them while the state pretends to figure out what to do with them. It's hard to conclude anything other than one thing about Sir Keir Starmer, that he's unbelievably thick. He has reams of evidence in the form of protests, alleged sexual assault and violence to show that migrants being placed in hotels is not working. And yet this much-touted lawyer cannot conclude from this that it might be yet another step too far to whack migrants into a former shop. This isn't surprising. He's the same fool who promised to slash benefits, risking the ire of the Labour left and therefore his credibility to save a poxy PS5 billion and look tough to the right before caving to that left, looking weak to that right, and saving zero money. The smart thing would have been to not go through the whole humiliating defeat and also save zero money. He's the same midwit who sees the rise of Reform UK, this week evidenced in a front-page Daily Mail splash that led on Nigel Farage's warning of societal collapse, but does absolutely nothing to try and win back the conservative former Labour voters who are flocking to the new party. Starmer had a very easy decision to make. Either he could tack to the right socially, win back the North, and sacrifice his metropolitan support for the bigger goal of defeating reform and actually representing the working class like the name Labour suggests he should. Or he could damn those who have a problem with migration as far right, refuse to hold a national inquiry into the rape of working-class children, before caving in yet again, and cozy up to the EU that class voted to divorce. He chose the latter. This allowed reform, already appealing to the red wall, to make left-wing noises on the economy that reassured Northerners they're not backing a Thatcher redux while touting social conservatism and migration policies that speak to those voters. He may as well have held the door open for Farage. Sir Keir has plenty of time to correct course. But if the actions of his first year in power are a clue as to his intellect, he'll sacrifice his own party at the altar of a political correctness that spits in the taxpayer's face every single day they pay PS4 million to house migrants. And though this stupidity might end his career, it will also heap more devastation on a low-trust society of the Metropolitan's making. Politicians need to learn a very simple lesson. Britain is not a land on which you win the right to experiment once elected.